What is going on, everyone? I'm Sir James from Gamerfuzion.com, and I'm here to give you my review on Company of Heroes 2. It is 1941, and the beginning of what will become the most brutal conflict of World War II, as Germany launches its full-scale invasion on the frozen tundra of the Soviet Union, which will result in over a 14 million military casualties. You take command of an iconic Soviet Red Army in a brutal frontline warfare to free Mother Russia from the invading Nazis. Your strategic skills and tactical expertise hold the power to tip the very balance of this conflict. You engage in a visual tactical combat which will define you as a military leader and challenge you to wield the might of the Soviet Empire as you mash your way through Berlin. As for the graphics, how are the graphics in Company of Heroes 2? And I'm glad to say visually they are really impressive. In the main menu you do have a variety of different graphical options to choose from to fit your proper needs, but when you have this game maxed out on all the settings possible, visually this game is really impressive. And I did notice an actual visual improvements from Company of Heroes 1 to Company of Heroes 2, which I think is great. And of course, one of my new personal favorites is the snow maps in this game, with the snow environments going on, the details of the units, the snow effects on the buildings and so forth is really impressive, especially when you have one big epic battle going on the map, whether it's a snow map, forest, wherever. Visually this game is really impressive and one that you would appreciate. As far as gameplay goes, the gameplay is exactly the same as Company of Heroes 1. The only difference is there's actually more improvements in this game, such as the abilities for your infantry, vehicle improvements, and of course your abilities to choose from different varieties of different air strikes, motor strikes, and all kinds of stuff. So you do have much more abilities to choose from than the basic from the Company of Heroes 1, which I think is great. You also have this really cool customization option where you're able to choose different variety of officers, and each officers have their own unique abilities, such as one officer could be skilled at in terms of aggression. So if you're the type of player who likes pushing up the front lines, making all kinds of attacks, you could have different abilities such as airstrikes and so forth. Maybe you're more of a defensive player, so you could have more defensive strikes, or you could be neutral. You could be a mixture of a defensive and an aggression and have all those different abilities, which I think is really nice. You also have skin options where you're able to actually put skins on your tanks, which I think is cool. So you have about 3 different type of tanks to choose from. You're able to add tanks, so such as, for example, if you're playing on the snow level, there's actually a skin for your tank that would fit and make the tank blend in the snow level really good, so it will kind of confuse your opponents, which I think is a really nice addition. You also have some new additions such as the snow maps. The snow maps are really cool. You have this blizzard effect that kicks in, and it's different sections. Like, for example, deep snow is going to move the mobility of your infantry units and of course your tank units as well, but it's not going to be, your tanks are not going to be as slow as your infantry units, but they'll get through at least pretty quickly as well. And also to certain sections of the snow map, you have this, you're going to notice a thermometer that peaks in next to your units. If it starts seeing blue, that means they're getting colder and colder. If it reaches 0, they're actually going to die of the cold, which I think is pretty cool. So you have to build fire pits or put them inside buildings and so forth to warm them back up, which I think is a really nice addition to this game and bringing a whole new strategy, especially in the snow maps, which only occurs in, I think, about a couple times in the single player campaign, but a few times if you're playing an actual multiplayer match with the AI or other online opponents, is that there's going to be this timer where a blizzard kicks in, and that's when basically you could hardly see anything on your screen, and you have to make sure your units are safe and out of the cold, because when the blizzard kicks in, they're going to freeze to death a lot faster than normal, which adds a whole new strategy to the battle levels, and which you could use the actual snow environments during the blizzard to move up your heavy tanks and so forth, because they're protected by the blizzard. And of course you also have the ability to now vault over obstacles, such as if you have a sandbag in front of you, instead of your units moving around to get to that destination, you're able to click on that and they will actually jump over the sandbags or different barriers, which I think is a really cool thing. So when you're performing flanking maneuvers and so forth, I think that adds a little bit more to the game. I wish they had that in the first game, but I'm glad to see it in this one. And of course, just like the original, everyone has their certain weaknesses in terms of how they take out different units. For example, tanks, the weakest spot on a tank is the rear end, so using your basic units to kind of distract the tank on the front line while you have an anti-tank crew go up behind and take it from the rear to do heavy damage, you still have that ability. And of course, when you take down enemy units, such as if you're facing against a light machine gunner, you kill that unit, you're able to go and pick up their actual machine gun and have that to your arsenal. Same thing with the anti-tank crews, the motor crews and so forth. I think is a really nice thing that they kept that there. adds more to the strategy. Just like the original, you're able to take cover. Cover system is a good thing because it's going to help keep your units alive, and a light or dark green area that's going to have the most advanced cover where they're going to survive longest. You have the yellow cover, which is kind of a medium where they're still going to stay in cover, but it's not going to last that long. And just like in the original, where when bombs and craters start going off on the map, you're able to send your units into the actual crater where that bombshell was, and you're able to use that as cover, which I think is a really nice system. Or you could throw grenades and create your own crater so you can have a defensive structures. And of course, you're able to set landmines, able to set barbed wire, and all kinds of different abilities. And of course, you still have the things where you capture supply points to be able to build up your infantry forces, such as if you have a higher military strength, then your upkeep is going to be a lot. If you have a low military strength, then your upkeep is going to be low. Of course, in the game, you also have multiplayer, and you also have the against the AI as well. In the actual game, in terms of multiplayer, you have about 13 different maps, and I read somewhere that this game is going to be offering free DLC for more additional maps, which I think is cool. As for the single player campaign, the single player campaign is about, I would say, 8 to 9 hours, but then again, it really depends on what difficulty you're playing on, and there's all kinds of different achievements to be earned from this, because you're playing as a soldier who's kind of defective away from the army due to all of the the casualties that have been suffered. Because you're going to notice in the game that basically any and every unit that tries to retreat in this game, or even during the cutscenes, are going to be shot on sight. I mean, this game is kind of like, it's kind of effed up right there, but it's what happened during their time, I guess. But which I think is really cool. And there's a lot of times where when you're playing the single player campaign, a commander is going to issue the unit, because you know how in the original game you have the option to make your units retreat back to your command center where you could heal them up, then send them back out to battle. But when this command is in effect, if you try to retreat your units, they're going to be shot on sight, which is adding kind of a more strategy involved. So it's like you want to retreat your units, but if you do, they're going to be shot, so you have to kind of figure out a different way to keep them alive. And there's all kinds of new units and vehicles as well. One of my personal favorites is the sniper. The fact that in a dark area, if you just have the sniper in the one area, they could send up a flare up in the sky. It's going to review that location, so you could actually for example, if the flare reveals anyone, you could take them out with the snipers. They have that stealth ability, which I think is really cool. But basically, like I said, any and everything that you've known from Company of Heroes 1 is in Company of Heroes 2 with just more improvements. And you have this ability where if your units are low on health, you could select that unit and combine them with another unit to make a much more bigger force, which I think is cool. So the Volt and adding units to a new unit type, I think is a really nice addition. And of course, you're able to build structures and stuff like that, build up your base to build different type of units to fit your needs, vehicles and so forth, which I think is great. But like I said, as far as gameplay goes, it's exactly the same as Company of Heroes 1. You still have the different strategies involved and taking out different units, moving along the map, the line of sight, pinning units down, using grenades, bombs, and so forth. For those of you who are not familiar with Company of Heroes 1, what I like about this game is that it offers a really nice tutorial system in terms of, the basics such as resources, on how to pin in terms of the different abilities for each unit. You also have different tips and tricks on how to maneuver throughout the battlefield, taking out certain type of enemy units and so forth. So for those of you who are new to this type of game, that's something you do want to check out, so that way you kind of get the idea.
Still see their faces as they stood there, stunned.
We sacrificed a few to save a city. You showed great courage that day, comrade.
Abandoning my men showed great courage?
Yes! We were victorious. We faced an enemy that seemed unstoppable. We did what was necessary to keep the Germans from taking Moscow. You had proved you were ready for the difficult challenge we faced at Mzinsk.
What was asked of our men at Mzinsk approached the impossible.
Now! Maxim HMGs on site.
The sound in this game is one of my personal favorites due to the fact that every bit of sound in this game with the combination of gameplay and visuals make this game even epic. Let me go ahead and start with the actual soundtrack of the game. In the beginning, when you're building up your base during an online match or scrimmage, or even in the single player campaign, you just have the basic kind of like a relaxing tone, but then as the battle immerses and kicks up, you have this epic tone that kicks in, just like makes it, it basically feels like it belongs there, which I think is great. Also, one of my other personal favorites is the sound effect on every single weapon in this game. Every weapon, from the anti-infantry units, from the tanks, anti-motor crew, anti-tank crew, basically every single weapon in this game fits perfectly, which is why I like the sound in this game. And also, I love the infantry units. Any and every all unit in the game is going to keep you up to date 24/7 on the battlefield as to what's going on. For example, if you're away looking at somewhere else on the screen, let's say you're back at your base building units, and you have units often currently in battle, they're going to let you know, hey, like we have an enemy tank in the area, we need help. Or if your units are pinned down by an anti-infantry crew, then they're going to let you know that they're pinned down, and then you can send your units to go do a flank maneuver to try to help them out. Or even the Molotovs. I think the Molotovs are one of my personal favorite. Is when you throw a Molotov at an enemy group, you're going to hear them screaming because they're burning alive, which I think is really cool. But just the overall sound in this game is great, from the soundtrack and from just basically any and everything from this game that includes sound fits really well into the tone of this game. Like I said, with a combination of the sound, the combination of the gameplay and visuals, make this a one epic game. As for the lifespan, what kind of lifespan do we see in a game like this? To be honest, this game has a great lifespan. The main thing that people are going to keep coming back to when it comes to Company of Heroes or Company of Heroes 2 is the actual online multiplayer. It's really competitive, really enjoyable. Like I said, with the combination of all three things that I talked about in the last segment, makes this game really enjoyable, and it is also one of the top best real-time strategy games out there, especially for multiplayer. Now, if you're not that great at the multiplayer, you're able to go into a customizable game and play with some of your friends against AI bots, which I think is really cool, which is now and then what I do due to the fact that I'm not skilled enough to take on other people head on. But you do have that option on there. And of course, too, you're going to notice that on the main menu you have a certain rank that you have on the top right hand corner. As you progress through the single player campaign or complete scrimmage matches or online matches, you're going to unlock more abilities that you could choose from in the customizable section of the game. The actual campaign altogether, you have from easy, medium, and hard, which will take you about 8 hours depending on what difficulty you're playing on. Mission 8 for me, what I think was like the most pain, due to you had to escort this tank all the way back to your base. It was really slow and you have enemy rockets everywhere. But just overall, like I said, in terms of the lifespan, the multiplayer is what's going to be keeping this game alive. But as for the single player campaign, I actually really did enjoy the single player campaign overall. Compared to Company of Heroes 1 and this one, I would say I prefer this campaign over the first one, but that's just my personal opinion. But like I said, this game has a really good lifespan. As for the innovative, did they bring anything new to the table, or is this a simple copy and paste? It's mostly just a copy and paste from the original, but with a lot of improvements to the game, which I think is a great addition. Making the battles much more epic, and just being able to perform flank maneuvers a lot better, moving around the battlefield, jumping over obstacles instead of going around, more abilities, customization, and so forth. I think adds more to this game. So altogether, I'm going to go ahead and give Company of Heroes 2 a 9.2 out of 10. This game is fun and a must-have title. If you're a fan of Company of Heroes 1, you're probably going to be enjoying Company of Heroes 2, especially the online multiplayer. Anyways, I'm Sir James from Gamerfuzion, and remember, Gamerfuzion empowers your gaming.